The air is thick with anticipation, wouldn't you say? I mean, even if you're not a massive football fan, you can feel the buzz around a Real Madrid versus Barcelona Copa del Rey final, a Clasico.
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. But this year, well, the drama really kicked off way before the first whistle.
Exactly. And that whole pregame storm, that's what we're digging into for you today.
Right. Our mission really is to cut through the noise, make sure you understand the core issue, specifically Real Madrid's reaction to, well, some pretty strong words from the referees.
We want to give you the essentials, without getting totally lost in every single tweet and counter-tweet.
Precisely. We're mainly looking at an ESPN report here. And the thing that really grabbed me initially was the doubt.
Yeah.
The real uncertainty about whether Real Madrid would even show up for this massive game.
That's pretty staggering for a final of this magnitude. So what was their initial stance, according to the report?
Well, it was forceful, very forceful. ESPN detailed how they came out publicly saying they felt, and this is a quote, clear animadversity and hostility from the appointed refereeing team.
Wow. Animadversity and hostility, that's strong language.
It really is. And it wasn't just talk,
They backed it up.
Yeah, they backed it up. The report mentions they refused point blank to participate in the usual pre-final activities.
Like what? The press conference?
The official training session, even the pre-match dinner, standard stuff for a big final.
So refusing all of that sends a pretty clear signal, doesn't it? Deep unhappiness.
Absolutely. It signals major discontent. It really felt like, okay, are we heading towards a genuine standoff here? Maybe even a boycott?
Potential crisis for the whole competition. But things shifted. The Spanish government got involved.
That seems to be the key turning point. The Consejo Superior de Deportes, that's the government's sports council.
Okay.
ESPN sources suggested their intervention, their mediation efforts, were actually the reason Real Madrid eventually decided not to boycott.
So it took government-level talks to keep them in the final.
Apparently so. That's what the reporting indicates. It really underlines how much weight these huge clubs carry, doesn't it? That the government feels the need to step in.
It makes you wonder about the dynamics there. What does that mean for future disputes,
It's a fair question. Anyway, after this intervention, Real Madrid put out their own official statement, right? A tweet, I think.
Yeah, they did. To clarify things, what was the official line then? Because it sounds a bit different from potentially boycotting.
Well, their tweet stated very clearly they never considered withdrawing from the final. That was the public message.
Never considered it.
Okay, and they framed it as, look, these unfortunate and inappropriate declarations from the refs shouldn't ruin what's a massive global event. They mentioned the, hundreds of millions watching, the fans traveling.
Right, so playing down the boycott idea publicly. But the ESPN report suggests those underlying problems, the grievances about the refs, they didn't just vanish.
Not at all. And that's a crucial point. Even while saying they'd play, the statement repeated their belief in that hostility and animadversity.
Still using those strong words.
Exactly. And they even added that these feelings had been made clear once again, suggesting, this isn't the first time in their eyes.
Interesting. So there's maybe a bit of a gap between the behind-the-scenes reality suggested by ESPN sources and the official public statement.
It certainly looks that way. You could call it strategic communication, maybe.
Yeah.
Managing the message.
Yeah. Perhaps wanting to register their protest very strongly, but without actually pulling out of such a huge game. A tricky balance.
Definitely. So that's Real Madrid's side, or at least their public stance combined with the reporting. What about the authorities, the Spanish Football Federation?
Well, the Federation president, Rafael Luzon, he stepped in to try and pour some oil on troubled waters, basically.
Trying to calm things down.
Yeah, exactly. He reassured everyone the final was definitely happening. Called for, I think the words were responsibility and tranquility.
Standard procedure, you might say. Did he address the referee issue directly?
He did, but interestingly, he sort of emphasized the process. He said, look, refereeing appointments and issues, that's handled by the CTA, the Technical Committee of Referees. It's their job.
Okay, so pointing to the official body responsible.
Right. But he also said he'd spoken directly with Real Madrid and that they'd set up some kind of commission involving the club to talk about these issues.
Ah, so acknowledging the complaint and setting up a channel, at least?
Seems like it.
Yeah.
And he sounded very sure about the game itself. The report quoted him saying, claro que sí, se va a jugar.
Of course it will be played. Pretty emphatic.
You can almost hear him saying it, can't you? Firm, confident.
Yeah, projecting certainty. Now, the ESPN piece also mentioned a few other sort of related bits of news, not central to the will they, won't they play question, but part of the background hum.
Right. Worth touching on briefly just for the full picture. What else was swirling around?
Well, there are reports apparently that the referee who is kind of at the center of this was quite upset because of criticism coming from Real Madrid's own TV channel.
Ah, Real Madrid TV. Yep.
Yeah. And then you had comments from Flick, the Barcelona coach, saying, we need to respect referees.
Adding his voice to the mix.
Exactly. And even, this is a bit random maybe, but a comparison piece between Lamine Yamal and Vinicius, the young stars, just adding to the general buzz and perhaps tension.
So lots of noise, lots of side stories. But if we boil it right down, based on that ESPN report, what's the absolute core tension here?
I think it's pretty clear. It's Real Madrid feeling genuinely aggrieved, believing they're facing unfairness, even hostility, from the officials assigned to this massive game.
Right. To the point where not playing was seemingly on the table, at least internally or as a threat.
Exactly. That's one side. And the other side is the football authorities, backed by the government intervention, needing to ensure this huge final goes ahead smoothly. For the fans, for the sports image, everything.
That's the conflict. Okay, so bringing it all together for you listening, the big news is, yes, Real Madrid will be playing in the Copa del Rey final. That's confirmed.
And it's pretty significant, but there are very vocal, very serious complaints about the referees hang over the match. It's a major backdrop now.
You can't ignore it. And that government intervention, the report really stresses how important that seems to have been.
Yeah, it suggests that mediation by the Consejo Superior de Deportes was likely the key factor in stopping a potential boycott, which, let's face it, would have been huge, a massive blow.
Absolutely huge. So, okay, the teams will be there, the cup will be there, but here's a final thought for you to chew on as we look towards the game itself.
Go on.
All this stuff beforehand, the accusations, the tension, the government stepping in, what kind of impact could that actually have on the pitch?
Interesting question.
Could it affect the player's mentality, the referee's decisions, even subconsciously? How the millions watching perceive fairness?
Yeah, it definitely throws a spotlight on those power dynamics, doesn't it? Between the massive clubs, the refs, the governing bodies. It adds a whole other layer to the final.
Something to think about while you watch the match unfold.